The cliff was 30 meters. Fire was coming from above. The ropes were wet, and we had to climb. There was no other way. Going back down meant death. Going up probably did too, but at least up there was a chance. Pointe du Hoc, June 6, 1944. D-Day morning. 225 American Rangers climbed a sheer cliff face. Only 90 were left at the top, and those 90 still had to fight. June 6, 1944. Pointe du Hoc, the Normandy coast. 6 in the morning. The sea was rough, the boats were pitching, and 225 men sat in those boats, waiting, thinking, or trying not to think. What was in front of them? A 30-meter sheer cliff, a granite wall rising straight up from the water, German positions at the top, and in those positions 155mm guns. Those guns could reach Omaha and Utah beaches. They could kill thousands of Allied soldiers. The mission was clear: destroy those guns. The commander of the Ranger Battalion was Captain James Rudder. He was from Texas, 34 years old. Quiet, determined, practical. In the boats were young men from different states, average age 22. All of them had been through Ranger training. All of them knew what they had to do. But between knowing and doing, there was a 30-meter cliff. Corporal James Wilkins was from Pennsylvania, 21 years old. He was gripping the side of the boat. He turned to Adams beside him. "I've never wanted to climb something so badly," he said. Adams looked at him. "Why?" "Because I want off this boat." Adams laughed. A short laugh, then went serious. The boat was closing on the cliff.
Pointe du Hoc was one of the most critical targets of the D-Day operation. The point sat in a strategic position between Omaha and Utah beaches. The 155mm German guns positioned there had the range to reach both landing zones. Allied command determined that these guns had to be neutralized on the morning of D-Day. The mission was assigned to the 2nd Ranger Battalion. 225 men would climb the sheer cliff face and take the positions at the top. The operation was extremely demanding, both physically and tactically. Failure would have made the cost of the beach landings considerably heavier.
The boat came alongside the cliff. Rockets fired. Ropes shot up toward the top of the cliff. Some caught, some didn't. Some were wet and heavy, hard to pull on. Wilkins grabbed a rope, pulled. It held. He started climbing. The first 5 meters were manageable. Then the fire started. From above, German soldiers were looking down from the top of the cliff and firing. Wilkins stopped, pressed himself against the rock. Other men were climbing around him. One fell, a cry, then silence. Wilkins didn't look. He climbed. 10 meters, 15. Ropes were being cut. The Germans above were cutting them. Some men fell when they lost their grip with nothing left to hold. Wilkins felt his own rope go. For a moment, he pressed himself flat against the rock in panic. His right hand found a ledge. His left hand found another. He climbed, without the rope. 20 meters, 25. His hands were bleeding. The granite was hard, unforgiving. But there was something at the top, a mission at the top. 30 meters. Wilkins reached the top, went flat on the ground, took a breath. He looked around. How many men had made it? He tried to count. Not many, far too few, but the mission was waiting.
The 2nd Ranger Battalion suffered significant casualties during the climb. Wet ropes and German fire made the ascent extremely difficult. Some men had no choice but to climb without ropes, using only the rock face itself. The climb took approximately 30 to 40 minutes. The first Rangers to reach the top immediately had to engage German positions. They searched for the guns and found something they hadn't expected.
225 men had climbed a 30-meter cliff, and what they had come for wasn't there. Rudder got on the radio, reported in. "The guns aren't here. They've been moved." The voice came back. "Understood. Continue the mission. Hold the position." Rudder closed the radio. He turned to his men. Their faces were asking, "What happened? Where are the guns?" Rudder kept it short. "The guns aren't here, but we are, and we're not leaving. We're going to find those guns, and we're going to hold this position." Wilkins listened, thought about it. They had climbed for the guns. The guns weren't there, but here they were, and going back down was not an option. The sea was below. Germans were behind. There was only one direction: forward. Small groups were formed, each heading a different way, to find the guns and to clear German resistance points. Wilkins headed south with Adams.
The most unexpected dimension of the Pointe du Hoc operation was that the guns were not found in their emplacements. German forces had moved them inland to protect them from Allied bombardment. Ranger reconnaissance groups found the guns approximately 1 kilometer inland in an orchard. They had not yet been deployed, and their ammunition stores were beside them. A small ranger group destroyed them. This was the critical achievement of the Pointe du Hoc operation. But until that was done, the Rangers had to both hold the high ground and repel German counterattacks.
2 days. The Rangers stayed on top for 2 days, waiting for reinforcement. Reinforcement wasn't coming. The Germans had launched counterattacks from every direction. The number of Rangers on the high ground was dropping, ammunition was running out, and the radio signal was weak. Rudder reported in again and again. "We need reinforcement. Ammunition is gone. Casualties are heavy." The answer came back: "Hold. Reinforcement on the way." This wasn't Stalingrad. This was Normandy. But those two words were the same: hold. Wilkins was in a foxhole with Adams. Second day, afternoon. They had just done their last reload. A few magazines left. Adams counted. 22 rounds. Wilkins thought about it. Make them count. Adams laughed. "I always make them count." Wilkins remembered that laugh afterward. Short, tired, but real. That evening, German forces launched a major assault against the Rangers' left flank. Wilkins and Adams ran toward it. The fighting was at close range. Very close. Through the trees. Foxhole to foxhole. At one point, Wilkins turned around. Adams wasn't there. He went back. Found him. Adams had been hit. Not critical, but he couldn't walk. Wilkins picked him up, carried him to a covered position. "Idiot," Adams said. "Leave me." "Quiet," Wilkins said, and carried him.
The Rangers at Pointe du Hoc spent 2 days both defending the high ground and repelling German counterattacks. In that time, the 225-man unit suffered approximately 135 casualties. The surviving 90 men continued to hold with extremely limited ammunition and supplies. Reinforcement didn't reach them until June 8th. This 2-day resistance made Pointe du Hoc one of the most demanding and least known operations of D-Day. Rudder's small group both completed the strategic objective and prevented the Germans from retaking this critical position.
Evening of the second day. Wilkins sat in his foxhole, looked around. They had come with 225. How many were left now? He didn't want to count, but his mind counted anyway. Not many. Far too few. Adams was beside him. His leg was bandaged. His face was pale, but his eyes were open. "How many are left?" Adams asked. "Enough," Wilkins said. Adams looked at him. "You're lying." "Yes," Wilkins said. The two of them went quiet. Wilkins looked at his hands. The marks from the climb were still there. Cuts from the granite. Dried blood. His hands were hurting. He hadn't noticed until now. A 30-meter cliff. No guns at the top. But they had fought for 2 days, and they had found the guns. A kilometer inland, and destroyed them. The mission was complete, but the cost had been heavy. Rudder walked among his men that evening. Stopped beside each one. Said a few words, sometimes nothing at all. Just looked. When he came to Wilkins, he stopped. "Are you all right?" he asked. "No," Wilkins said. Rudder nodded. "Neither am I," he said, and moved on. That honesty stayed with Wilkins. Years later, he said this: "Rudder asked us if we were all right. He didn't say he was all right. He just asked, and he accepted the answer." That might sound like a small thing, but in that moment, it was everything.
Pointe du Hoc entered the record as one of the operations with the highest casualty rates in the Second World War. Approximately 60% of the 225 men were killed or wounded within 2 days. The survivors continued to hold with extremely limited resources across both a defensive and offensive role simultaneously. This speaks to the quality of Ranger training, but also lays bare the human cost of the operation. Behind every statistic were men like Wilkins and Adams.
June 8, 1944. Reinforcement arrived. Wilkins couldn't describe afterward what he felt when he saw the relief units coming. Joy? Maybe. But shock came first, because the men coming in paused when they looked at them. 2 days of fighting was written on every face, every uniform, every pair of eyes. A young private came over to Wilkins. "Are you the ones from Pointe du Hoc?" he asked. "Yes," Wilkins said. The private couldn't say anything, just looked. Wilkins understood. He understood what it looked like from the outside. He came home alive, back to Ohio, after the war ended. For years he didn't talk about Pointe du Hoc. When his family asked, he gave short answers. "It was a hard climb," he said. That was all. But in 1984, something happened. Reagan's speech at Normandy, the 40th anniversary of D-Day, and in that speech the Rangers of Pointe du Hoc were named directly. Wilkins watched that speech on television, in silence, all the way to the end. When it finished, he got up, went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water. His wife looked at him. "Are you all right?" Wilkins thought about it. He remembered Rudder's question. "No," he said, "but I will be."
The Pointe du Hoc operation stayed in the background of D-Day history, writing for a long time. It was overshadowed by Omaha and Utah beaches. But in 1984, Ronald Reagan's speech at Normandy brought the operation to wide public attention for the first time. That speech named the Rangers of Pointe du Hoc directly. While military historians have emphasized the strategic importance of the operation, the testimonies of survivors like Wilkins preserved its human dimension. The destruction of the guns directly affected the course of the Omaha landing. That connection makes the significance of the operation clear.
Wilkins died in 2001, in Ohio, at home. In the final years of his life, he started talking. He went to schools, he went to ceremonies, and every time he told the same story, not the climb, the moment at the top, the moment they found the guns weren't there. "We climbed with 225 men," he would say. "What we were looking for wasn't at the top, but we couldn't go back. So we kept going forward. Sometimes that's the most important thing in life. You can't go back, so you go forward." His grandchildren would take notes, but they always asked one thing. "Were you scared?" Wilkins gave the same answer every time. "Yes, but fear doesn't stop you. You just feel it, and you keep climbing." Adams died in 1995, in Pennsylvania. Wilkins went to the funeral, sat alone, for a long time. When he left, he looked at the headstone. Didn't say anything, just looked. Pointe du Hoc is still there today, on the Normandy coast. The cliffs haven't changed. The granite is still hard, still sheer, still 30 meters. Tourists come. They look up from below, and most of them say the same thing. How did they climb that? The answer is simple. They had no other choice. Going back down meant death. Going up probably meant death too. But up there was at least a chance. 225 men chose that chance. 90 were left at the top, and those 90 completed the mission. War history is mostly told in numbers. How many tanks? How many aircraft? How many kilometers gained? But the story of Pointe du Hoc can't be told in numbers, because it is the story of a hand gripping a wet rope, the story of a 30-meter granite wall, and the story of a man who looked up and chose to keep climbing. Every morning, every step.
Pointe du Hoc is today one of the most visited historical sites in Normandy. The cliff faces and the old German emplacements are preserved. Tens of thousands of visitors come every year. The 2nd Ranger Battalion's operation is assessed by military historians as one of the most demanding and most successful tactical operations of D-Day. The testimonies of survivors like Wilkins preserve the human dimension of this history. Those wet ropes, that granite wall, and the guns that weren't found at the top. All of it is part of this history, and all of it was carried on the shoulders of those 90 men.